Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sam Metcalf. I'm the Midlands editor of thebusinessdesk.com. Welcome to our latest webinar entitled Be Prepared for When the World Unpauses. Yesterday, we were treated to what on the face of it were some fairly terrifying figures from the OBR. The OBR said that the economy could contract by 35% over the next quarter. However, the OBR did point out that this was one scenario and not a concrete forecast. So with that in mind, today we're going to try and map out something a little bit more substantial, which will hopefully see Midlands businesses as well prepared as they possibly can be when the lockdown is lifted and the dam bursts and we get back to something approaching normality, if anyone can remember what that was like. And just a reminder for all of those tuning in today and who've signed up for this webinar, at the bottom of your screen there's a Q&A button. You can submit your questions to our panel, and I'm sure they'll do their best to try and answer them over the next 40 or so minutes. You can see our panel in front of you. We're joined by them today. They're from across the East and West Midlands, and they're going to give their unique perspectives on where we are now, where we go next, and what the near future might look like. So there's no pressure on you three there. I'm going to ask our panel to just introduce themselves briefly, and then we'll crack on with some questions. So Susan, you first, please.
Hi, Sam. My name is Susan Hallam. I'm the founder and chief executive of a digital marketing agency called Hallam, based in Nottingham City Centre. We employ 50 people, all of whom are now remote working, and we work with a range of clients providing services like search engine optimization, digital branding, web design, and development.
Thanks, Susan. Steve.
Thank you. My name is Steve Allen. I head the Birmingham office of Mills & Reeve. We're a full service corporate commercial law firm on Colmore Row. Got 6 offices across the country, so we're a national practice. I am also president of the Greater Birmingham Chambers of Commerce.
And Andy.
I'm Andy Dawson. I'm one of the co-founders and directors of Curium Solutions. We are a change management and leadership development consultancy business based in the centre of Birmingham. We've got a team of about 25 dotted around the UK, and we've also got a small business that operates out of Florida in the States.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Let's start with where we are now, if that's okay. We're probably, I don't know, I've lost track of time. I'm sure you're about 3 or 4 weeks into this. Andy, let's stick with you. You produce your own resilience tracker, don't you? Let's see if businesses are beginning to look forward. Do you think, from what you're hearing, businesses have begun to think about life after the lockdown yet, or are they still really in survival mode?
I think it's a bit of a mixed bag, Sam. We've been tracking this for the last 3 weeks. We just got the latest numbers back today, actually. And I think the trend on the last week has definitely been more businesses starting to look at structure, plans, clarity, about where they are. In the early days, it was very much about, I guess, the rise of the HR director, are our people okay? Let's stay connected. Are we set up? I think CFOs and FDs have been looking at numbers, looking at plans. And I think in a week or two's time, your CEOs will be starting to think about that kind of vision. Where are we going? How do we make sense of all this? But I think people are certainly at different points at the moment where their focus is.
Is that different sectors are at different points, or is that not becoming clearer?
I can't tell from the stats, but in terms of conversations I'm having, it's only a personal perspective. The furlough scheme seems to be a great scheme that the government has brought, and we'll see how that unfolds in the next few days when people start applying. But I do have a little bit of a worry that furlough is just, we're kicking the can down the road a little bit. I think businesses have got lots of other costs to control. So I depend on the size and scale and complexity of your organisation. I think the smaller businesses are able to react a little bit quicker and get themselves sorted out. But the bigger the businesses are, I think there's still that kind of governance process, there's still that thinking process that some of those are going through.
That links nicely because we've got Steve, who's in charge of a really big business there, and Susan, a smaller one. So if we can ask that question to you two, whereabouts do you two with your businesses at the moment? Susan?
Again, I think we, as Andy has suggested, we have been through the process of reorganizing our people, getting offices sorted out. We've now crossed that bridge, and I think we, together with a number of our clients, are starting now to be a bit more forward-looking and thinking about what they're going to be doing as we go towards that exit. The only thing I'm picking up is there is still this feeling of uncertainty. So it's very difficult to know what to do about the planning. And I think what goes hand in hand with uncertainty then can be paralysis. We need to be making decisions. We need to be making plans. But in this uncertainty, it can be very difficult.
Steve, how are you finding it?
It's an interesting time. I mean, we currently have over 900 people working online, working from home across the business. I think what we're trying to do is stay close to our clients, speaking to them, seeing what we can help with. In terms of where we're looking forward and what our strategy may be looking forward, I think it's early days. We have a coronavirus contingency group that meets on a daily basis that sort of determines these matters. But I think at the moment we're getting used to the new norm. So query, if you look at where this is going, potentially we're talking about the end of the lockdown, but unless you find a vaccination for this, you may potentially have another 12 months of social distancing. It's very difficult now to plan for that sort of future.
Yeah, well, that brings it back to uncertainty, as you've all mentioned there. We've got a question from Jodie, who's bashing the press. She's asking, regarding the future, does the panel feel the press reporting of ifs, maybes, coulds and mights is actually causing more damage than doing any good? Is it the press's fault, Andy?
No, I don't think the press are there to talk about certain things, aren't they? They talk about things that they think is newsworthy. I think it's our responsibility as business owners and business leaders really to communicate to our teams in a really balanced way that takes account everyone thinks and feels a little bit differently. I think that sense of responsibility sits firmly with us. The press will talk about what people want to hear in terms of the news. So I think we keep responsibility here and encourage our customers to do the same.
Is that something you agree with, Susan?
Yeah, I do think, of course, the press are always looking for breaking news. And I think, I don't know about other business owners, but I personally have taken the decision not to try to stay too close to the news all day, every day. In some respects, stepping away from the news, I think, has helped me to keep a better sense of perspective. I do check it regularly, but and we're also advising our colleagues not to be watching the news on a continuous basis. At this stage, I don't think it's good for kind of your emotional well-being.
Yeah, sure. Steve?
No, I completely agree with that. And I think you need to go to established sources of news, like the Business Desk, like the Chamber, like the various hubs that are online, rather than sort of buying into some of the hysteria you're seeing.
Yeah, sure. Have you been, Steve, surprised by the resilience of firstly your own business in certain cases and your clients?
The answer to that is yes. I mean, our IT team did a brilliant job in getting 900 people online across the firm. So we're now acting as a virtual law firm, but we're still operating as before, as best we can. And in terms of our clients, we're still giving the sorts of advice that we were giving before. Have businesses surprised me with their resilience? I think the answer to that is yes. I think it's very difficult for retail, leisure, hospitality, those sorts of businesses. If you're looking at some of those businesses in the Midlands that are now doing home deliveries, which they never did before, but those sort of small businesses, that sort of resilience is pretty good. So I think there are good signs out there.
Okay, Andy.
I've not. No, I think resilience has been fantastic. I'd echo Steve's point there. I think businesses with good cultures, strong values that are well led, will be doing well. There's been some headline makers on both sides, hasn't there, around people like Timpson's, that business, and Greg's, how well they've looked after their staff and how they've acted with responsibility. And on the other side, there's some businesses that have been perceived to not act that well. And I think in time we will all remember those businesses that maybe have crossed the line a little bit. But I think we're a resilient group, we're a resilient bunch. The vision doesn't change for what we're trying to achieve. This is just a bump in the road, albeit it's a very big bump at the moment.
Susan, we met, didn't we, just before all this really got big news, and then we're doing an event together around innovation and your company's sort of innovation culturally. Has that helped your business over the last 3 or 4 weeks? That kind of culture?
It definitely has, Sam, and I think that's true with also the kind of clients that we're working with. So I think if we look at this kind of divide in terms of businesses that are managing and are coping well, some of them have, many of them have already invested in digital infrastructure. There have been change transformation programs that have been going on anyway. In some respects, I think the pandemic is perhaps accelerating change that might have happened anyway, but what it's doing is it's forcing it to happen now. The other thing I think that's interesting in terms of resilience is that we are seeing clients at this point who are already investing in the future, so that they are looking forward. They're using this time to sit down and reflect and regroup, and they're starting actually to be investing in preparing for when we come out of this. So I have to say I've been really impressed in terms of resilience, but then there have, of course, been companies that have been really, really, really hard hit by this as well.
Sure. Let's talk about you then personally, not just your businesses, you three here. What kind of leadership qualities have you had to show over the last 3 weeks? And is this something completely new to you? We'll start with Steve.
I'm getting used to Zoom calls. I'm getting used to remote working and talking to people on the screen, which is certainly different to what I'm used to. I think it is keeping people focused, keeping people's morale up. We're doing various things at Mills and Reeve to help with that. So we've got wellbeing groups, which we're dividing into wellbeing groups for people with kids or people with carers, so we can give them support. I have daily chats on the phone with my team at Mills and Reeve. But obviously for me, the bigger picture is the chamber, because being president of the chamber, I would normally be out networking, seeing people, visiting businesses, and I can't do that. So we find increased use of social media, but I'm gradually, hopefully, adjusting to it. And but I think the key thing as a leader that Andy, will probably talk about is the issue of resilience, is the issue of being able to drive the business forward. And I think that's what we're aiming to do, but keep everybody on board.
Okay. Yeah, Andy, then. You want to come in on that?
Yes. So I think we've kind of realigned our focus in terms of our goals at the moment. So we're focused on four things. And that's myself and James and Adam, my business partners, and this is communicated out. So longevity of revenue, securing the revenue and managing the cash, that applies to us all. Secondly, how do we invest our time? This is an opportunity we'll never get again to invest the time of our team really wisely in some of the key projects we never get to finish off because consultants are rubbish at doing that generally. So we've got a plan of 5 key projects that we think will make a big difference to us in the medium and longer time. So when people aren't working for a customer, they're focused on those key projects. The other area is checking in, so making sure we're looking after our team, our customers and our suppliers. We have a number of contractors who work with us on some of the contracts, and of course they're self-employed, so it's important to make sure that they're okay as well. And then finally, just trying new stuff, test and learn. It's a great opportunity to be doing things like this, to trying to do virtual courses that we run, to be doing little videos and things that you post out on social media. So that kind of focused on those.
Okay. I think Andy's still there. Susan, what have you been doing at Hallam?
I thought this was a really interesting question, Sam, and I did take a minute to speak with my colleague Jake Third about this, and in terms of how our leadership team style has changed. And Jake highlighted 2 things I wanted to mention. The first is we have been spending a lot of time building a collaborative consensus building culture. And Jake's point was, in a time of crisis like this, we did actually revert to much more direction setting. I think people wanted to be led. They wanted to know we had a plan and we had to tell them what was going on. So I think in a sense, we pulled in the leadership reins. We were more directive over a period of time, and now we're kind of reverting back to our more collaborative style. So I think there has been a real shift in leadership style during this period. And I think the second thing in leadership has to do with that whole empathy thing, which I do know is really important for us culturally. And fortunately, we were well prepared and well positioned that when our clients came to us with difficulties, we were able to be supportive and as helpful as we can be. So I think what it did do, it was a combination of having a plan and being directive, and then as being as caring and compassionate, both to colleagues and to clients as we could be over this period. So it has been a real test of the leadership. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not sure if Andy's can hear us or not. It doesn't look that way.
It looks like he's frozen.
He's frozen. We've got a question from David, who's joined us. Do we all want to go back to normal after this? Just a good question. Do we need the same size offices? Do we need to work the same amount of hours? What have we learned from this that we can take forward? Is this the new normal, Steve?
No, I don't actually think it is. I mean, I've read online about how businesses are saying, well, we don't need offices, we can all work from home. I think fundamentally, we are sociable animals. I think it's important that we interact with each other. And if you are on the calls to my office, you hear people saying, I really miss this part of the building where I could go for a coffee to catch up with people. I think it's really important. So I don't think much is going to change for businesses of my size. Smaller businesses, maybe half a dozen people, a dozen people, maybe that may change the way they operate. But we may see changes, more imaginative use of office space in Birmingham. So we might see some retail sharing. We may see that in the future. But I don't think this is going to be the new norm. I think, and I very much hope, that we will get back to normal as we knew it, when finally we find an answer to this problem.
Okay.
I hate to disagree with Steve, but I think as a small business owner, I think what we are seeing is indeed the new normal. I'm looking at for example, the kind of ways in which we are working with our clients. We're doing a lot less travel. We're finding virtual meetings like this are actually a highly efficient way of working. So I think that we will be introducing these new working practices. I'm finding as well, I'm also the chairman of Nottingham's Creative Quarter, and we are delivering many, many more virtual events like this one that's being organized that are being very well attended. So I think that there will be a lot of changes in working practice that are going to stick. I do think it is going to stick.
Yeah. Okay, I think Andy looks like he's coming back. Let's move on to what you're doing about how you're portraying your business through marketing and business development. Has that completely changed for you, Susan?
In terms of our own marketing and business practices, it fundamentally hasn't changed, because our business proposition was always about being helpful and straightforward and plain speaking and sharing what we know. We have indeed tweaked our marketing plan, but our core values, fortunately, haven't really changed at all. We are really not doing any proactive outbound sales work at all at the moment. So we are entirely based on supporting our existing customer base and being as helpful to everyone as we can be.
Andy, you're back with us. Hello.
Sorry, yeah, internet connection. Resilient.
Don't worry, we're talking about how you're marketing your business really during this. There's quite a good comment on the questions there. Businesses who shut down on day one are headed to the basement. Would you agree with that? And are you continuing to push and market your company?
Yeah, we are. So we're using social media a fair bit. We've doing a lot of online webinars like this as well. So, but that's no different to what we were doing. We've never been ones to invest in outbound or things like that. Probably the only difference is few conferences and things we used to attend, but more of them have been getting done like this now. So that's businesses is a danger of looking at your own shoes a little bit. You've got to reset yourself and keep doing something, but the smart ways of doing things that doesn't involve a lot of money at this moment in time.
Okay. What about you, Steve? You're obviously a bigger business than the other two. How has it affected your business development and marketing?
We just stay close to our clients. We don't bombard their inboxes. I think that's fatal at the moment. But we're launching various tools that help our clients. So we've got a coronavirus hub, and I think we've had 25,000 page views of that, about 13,000 visitors to that hub. And now we're beginning to understand what our clients actually are looking for. We're beginning to develop further tools for the business to help our specific clients and specific sectors. So it's sort of pretty focused. But then again, as a law firm, we were always pretty focused in terms of the way that we approach business development and marketing anyway.
Okay. There's a question here from Nick Gostick. Many successful companies are starting in recessions. What should companies be doing, not just to survive now, but to be in a position to thrive after the shutdown? Andy?
Well, I think Susan mentioned it at the start. It's a good opportunity to pause a little bit here, but I think it's really important to think about where you want to be when this does unlock. I think looking at those, there's so many, when we listed out the projects we've not tackled over the last kind of 18 months because we've been very busy supporting our customers, it's having the time to invest in getting those key things done and staying as close to your customers as you can, because their needs are changing on a weekly basis, depends on how long this goes for and what the new changes and things are. So really listening hard and invest in what you think are the right things, so you're ready. Don't be last in the queue, be right at the front.
Steve?
Yeah, so what I've learned from all of this is how businesses are dependent on each other. And there's less of business rivalry, there's more of an understanding that we're part of a bigger process. I think that's going to sustain a lot of businesses going forward. If I can give you an example, as a litigator, I deal with commercial disputes for businesses, and I'm getting a lot of inquiries at the moment about force majeure, frustration, illegality, all those sorts of contractual issues that you might expect. And what I'm finding that, you can give some robust advice, but some of the advice I'm giving at the end of the day is to pick up the telephone to your customer or within your supply chain and just speak to them, say, look, we've got these issues, you must be having the same issues, let's try and resolve these. And their clients are coming back and saying, well, actually, that was really good advice because we're now moving forward together. So I think looking at resilience, I think we are all in this together. And I think there will be a more supportive, hopefully, business environment going forward.
Okay. Now, Brexit was mentioned, I'm sorry to mention this, but Brexit was mentioned yesterday for the first time, what seems forever. There's a question here from Rachel. Do you think the coronavirus has completely eclipsed the whole Brexit issue? And do you think that it will rear its head differently once we're out the other side? What do you think about that, Susan?
Obviously, I think this is the first time I've heard the word Brexit in quite a little while, Sam. So obviously this has eclipsed it, but nevertheless, the issues still remain. As an agency, we do trade. As an agency, we do trade internationally, and so there still are these questions in terms of border flows, in terms of businesses wanting to work with brand GB. We do know that there are a lot of particularly Europeans that want to work with us because we do. I know I don't sound like I'm British, but I am a British citizen, and they want that work. So. It'll be interesting to see as these negotiations resurface. I haven't been reading much about the negotiations in the press at the moment, but at some point this is going to have to come back to the fore, isn't it?
Yeah. Andy, what do you think about Brexit? And will this change the whole sort of perspective of Brexit?
Well, it will get talked about, but I think I was chatting to someone the other day about this. There's a really good lesson about Brexit, because Brexit's been on the go for 12 months, if not more, hasn't it? In terms of delay. And I think the reflection we had is, whilst it's tough, challenging times now, we've been in a pretty uncertain, challenging business environment for the last 15 months or so. Brexit had a lot of uncertainty. We had a change of prime minister. We had an election happening or not happening. We've now got coronavirus. It just shows how resilient businesses and people can be. So yes, it will come and be talked about again, but it will be dealt with.
Do you remember when we weren't in uncertain times, Andy?
Say that again, sorry.
Do you remember when we weren't in uncertain times?
Exactly, and that's the fun part and the nature of what we do in business, isn't it? And that's the good thing about being an SME. There's always new things you can look at and do. Okay,
Steve, time to peer into your crystal ball. What kind of economy do you think? This is a big question, I understand. We'll be waiting for us when we're launched back into the world.
gosh, if I knew the answer to that question, Sam, you know, and you talked about the OBR reports, 35% shrink in the British economy. You took unemployment could soar by 2 million. Andy Street was interviewed, I think it was yesterday, when he said, look, the difference between now and 2008, is that prior to this virus happening, our economy was in relatively good shape. So he said we should be in a reasonable position to bounce back, and I absolutely hope he's right. But I have no crystal ball. Like it's not good. You know, this is the worst recession, they're saying, for 300 years if it goes on through to the summer. So I'm in no position to decide what or advise on what the economy might look like.
Okay. Susan, before I come to you on that, Nadia Riz-McKay has sent a question in. It says, you reported that a U-shaped recession will hit around October time. How do you think we will need to act now to be able to manage another crisis that will potentially impact clients and in turn our businesses? Do you want to come on that, Susan?
Well, I guess the question was, is it going to be V-shaped? Is it going to be U-shaped? And I do agree with Steve that at this point, we just don't know. I guess what I would say, our business, our agency, we've been trading for 20 years. So we did operate right through 2008. And I think what we need to do is as business leaders, is collectively take a deep breath. And you know, and as they say, this too will pass. We will get through this. I think what we can't be doing is frightening ourselves into things. I think we just have to get our head down. We have to concentrate and we have to motor through this. This is the hand that we have been dealt, and we just have to get on with it. And fortunately, and again, I would agree with Steve, what Steve and Andy both have said, a lot of this has to do with the support that we're getting from other business owners in the area, the support that we're getting from the government. So let's wait and see what happens.
Okay, Andy.
Well, I don't have a crystal ball either, so we're all unified in that one. But what I would say is, and what I would encourage people to, is just you have to worry about things you can control. Yeah? And there's so many things we can control, and many big things we can't. So whether you're a leader or a business owner, or a partner of a business, you've got to really focus and worry about the things that are important to you and your customers. Don't get embroiled and wrapped up in thinking about too many other things, because this is unprecedented. There's no playbook, there's no rule book. We're all going to make lots of mistakes along the way. So that classic phrase of fail fast, learn really quickly, and just worry about what you can control yourselves.
Okay, great. We're getting some really good questions in from the audience, actually. There's a good one here from Carl Benfield. We're seeing a realization of the value of the lower paid workers in society. I think, we all agree with that. Does this herald a shift in our future economy? And if so, where is the opportunity for business owners? Steve, what do you think about that?
I don't know the answer to that question. I know, this has been talked about all over the media about how we're now reassessing what's important in the economy, in life, and looking at those people who perhaps were not appreciated, like the health workers, the care workers, the brave people that are even stacking shelves in the supermarkets. So I think there may be a reassessment of that going forward, but how that's going to manifest itself, I don't know.
Sort of allied to that, Andy Skinner has sent a question in and says, people who spend all day in back-to-back meetings, what do they actually do? Is their role stroke worth in a rather harsh spotlight? I don't know who he's talking about there, but Susan, what do you think about the role of these workers in the future and their worth? How should we change our perspectives?
Well, I would agree first and foremost, don't we all hate sitting being in meetings all day? I mean, and I think that's one of the positive things that has come out of, again, this remote working is that I'm finding that meetings are actually being run much more efficiently, and that we're using our time better. But further to the point, I do agree that, we do have really such important roles in society that aren't then financially rewarded. I think that might be the point that Carl's making, is that we do have these essential roles that we do not reward with cash in the same kind of way. And Teaching, I think also being another, teaching and nursing and the caring professions. So I think perhaps the pandemic is a chance, will bring this to the forefront, and perhaps society, we may review this more carefully. You know, what kind of skills do we want to be rewarding?
Yeah. Andy?
I'd agree with that as well. And I think I'd just add a couple of things. I think what it might do is the lower paid or single parents who have craved flexibility of working in the past. I think this is a great example of how well remote working can work and how flexible working can work. So I think that could really help in the long term in terms of quality of life and well-being. So I think that's a good lesson from this. And I think also this has presented a really good opportunity to catch out lots of really undervalued people doing things really, really well, doing some really special things. And, you could add call center workers to that, very undervalued as a profession. But, with things like remote working, remote teams, you start to see the stars who aren't necessarily in those management grades and how good they are. So I think with this will also come a different reward and recognition mechanism as well further down the line.
Okay. And Sarah Howells has sent a question in saying, how can businesses best demonstrate value to clients in a post-COVID world? Steve, can I come to you on that one?
Has that really changed? I mean, in terms of offering value to clients, you just continue to do what we're doing. If you talk about my law firm, we keep in contact with our clients. We're very close to our clients. We support them in any way we can do in terms of legal advice, but also in other ways that we possibly can do. So, I think businesses prior to COVID-19 were already under a bit of stress in terms of fees. Professional service firms certainly were. When it comes to some of the large businesses who can go out there and have big panels. So I feel that we certainly were giving value for money, and other businesses will be similarly minded. So is that going to change? I'm not sure it will.
Susan?
I would agree with Steve that it is very much a question of staying close to your customers, because their requirements are going to be changing. What they're going to need is going to be changing. And I think perhaps in the kind of work that we do, it may have to be that businesses don't necessarily see a clear path to the future. So I think in terms of adding value, I think it is also helping to explore what might this new successful future look like. It may mean renegotiating ways in which we are working together. So in the one hand, nothing is new under the sun. As Steve was saying, things fundamentally have not changed. And on the other hand, everything has changed. So it's going to be a question of balancing those two things.
Andy, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. This is a great way of demonstrating the words that many of us often talk about. Partnership, relationships are really important to us. So what are the extra 1% that we are doing at this moment in time, the last 3 weeks, the next 3 weeks, to show that we're serious about the sorts of things we say in our mission statements, our value statements, etc., because that's what will get remembered, I think, and that's what will demonstrate the value post this being resolved.
Okay. Finally then, guys, what's the, if we sat there in 6 months' time and everything's fine again, whatever that is, whatever that might mean, when you look back, what do you think is the most valuable lesson you'll have learned during the lockdown? And what's the most valuable lesson you've learned so far, would you say? Whether that be in your business, personal, or sort of, in between life, really. Susan?
I think as we look back on this, I think the first thing would be is how lucky we were to have good team morale before we came into this problem. So the fact that we had worked hard on our company culture, that we had the good, strong team and the morale was good, I think without that, we would not have gotten through this. The second thing, of course, is the ability to do remote working and the cultural shifts associated with that. And of course, the third one, I think most business owners will agree with me, is understanding your cash flow. And, keeping on top of the money and making sure you have the money and you're keeping an eye on it, or a weekly or a day, for us, a daily basis. It's not a new lesson, but of course, cash is king. So I think that they were probably the three things I would look back on.
Okay, Steve.
I think the value of social interaction, I think I'm missing that a lot. And if you, as I said before, you know, if you talk to people in my office, there are bits of our office in Culmore Road they're really missing. That, you know, you copy and you chat to people, and, you know, I'm really missing that social interaction. I'm learning that email is not a great way to communicate, because one thing I've learned from this is, you know, you're carrying on business as usual. You may send an email to somebody, and the response you get back might surprise you. And I think knowing that in the background of their life at the moment, there may be all sorts of issues you're unaware of, it's so important to talk by telephone or talk through Zoom. And that's what I'm trying to do. Less emails, more direct interaction, because I think it's really important, particularly at a time like this, and I'm going to carry that forward.
Thanks, Steve. And finally, Andy.
Well, there's a definite reinforcement of how quickly we can adapt and we can change and we can take on new things. I think the pre-mortem looking back would probably say, really pleased we didn't waste this time. You know, where we had some capacity, we had some key things to do. We were delighted that we progressed those things when we did, and we were kind of brave about those decisions. And then I'd echo the other parts about, you know, communication. There's so many different ways of doing it. Some people prefer different ways. So tailoring things to the individuals as well as the team, I think, is quite good.
We've lost you again, Andy, I think. Well, listen, time is just about beating us. It's been fantastic picking your brains. And I'd like to thank you all for being so honest and candid with us. I'd like to also thank everybody who joined us today. There'll be a report on this webinar, on this chat, on our website the next couple of days. So thank you very much, all three of you. Thank you.